Talk to me about the no triangles policy because this a really important one, one that can kind of be overlooked, but in terms of part of the leadership journey, something that definitely has to be implemented. Where did it come from, and talk us through how to implement it?
Yeah, look, Brenton, I first come across this by another leadership consultant, actually Rachel Robinson, and some of the viewers here might have seen Rachel present at Xerocon in one year. But in a nutshell, the no bypass policy means really just having, I guess, personal integrity and not talking about other people on your team about a problem or an issue behind their back. Now, that might sound really simplistic. However, it does happen. And when it does happen, you've got to have this tool or leadership policy to educate to the people involved that you're always better off not creating triangles. Just go direct to the person. If you've got an issue or a matter to sort out, um, then go direct to the person. Don't create a triangle, because as soon as I think we've all worked in different places over the years that, we might see people having a bit of a chat around a corner, um, and it may not always be healthy chatter about, oh, do you know what happened here? So and so said this, and she said, he said, all this type of thing. So I think as a leader and the leaders that you develop, and leading your teams, it's really important that you just continually say, and lead from where you are. Each person has to be the leader. So if someone comes to me and says, hey, oh, Joe said this about me, I'd say, well, you need to go and talk to Joe about that face to face and sit down and have a chat. Don't send an email. We know what emails are like.
Mhm.
If something's sensitive, do not send an email. I've lost count over the years how many bad emails I've seen sent to clients and sent internally as well. So it's always not what, but how you do it. But in a nutshell, with the no triangles policy, there's some points there, Brent, that you've raised. It increases the respect, it increases productivity. Um, you know, Ed and I've seen, Ed's even been coaching me for years. There might be a little issue pop up that the mail's been sent to the wrong client or something. We've probably all seen that happen. But then, like all of a sudden 10 people are involved about this issue. There's a
Yeah.
blame mentality. There's oh, that person did it, or she said this. So, you got to cut all that out. And it's probably a good point I'm about to say, that none of these policies stand alone in isolation.
Mhm.
You've got to have each of these policies in place to create a
The
fantastic
overall
culture.
culture.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and again, leadership is creating a fantastic culture. And I think I just put a post recently that, for quite some years now, we've been tracking our internal culture, and
Mhm.
it goes up and down, and finally it's up the highest it's ever been. so,
Excellent.
so
Proof's
there's
in the
low
pudding.
points. So another policy just to implement, and again, this is in the Wise Vault at that step to really delve into the detail. But I think everyone knows exactly what I'm talking about. There's those triangle conversations that don't need to be had. Say, hey, Joe, just go and talk to him. Don't talk to me about it. I'm here to help. Let's focus on the solution. Yeah.
Absolutely. Guys, I'm mindful of time in terms of we've got one more policy to cover, but I'm just going to cut to some questions if you don't mind, because some people might have to drop off on the hour, but we're happy to stick around a little bit longer. Then that, and the last policy that we are going to cover off is specifically videoed and documented in the vault in any case. So um, I just want to get, and there's quite a few questions coming through on the topic that we discussed around being too friendly with staff. But Stephen was saying that, just touching on the point raised regarding managing your team and being too friendly, I've been that guy for 10 odd years. I hate conflict, and I know I need to get a bit tougher. But how do you turn a new leaf and reset expectations when I've been super hands off, etc., for all the years up until now? So who wants to lead with that one? Ed, maybe you?
I can do that. I don't want anybody to be confused about what I said about being too friendly. You can be friendly, but you have to be able to be in a position where if you have to sack somebody or reprimand somebody, that your friendship doesn't make it difficult for you to make that kind of decision.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be friendly, but you can't be best mates. Um, so I'm friendly with everybody here. They all like me. We don't have any, meanness between us. And if you go and ask the 160 staff, they'll say that Ed's a decent guy and so forth. But I don't think I'm their best friend, or because I think that I'm able to have that hard conversation with all of them if I needed to, and I don't think that I'm in such a position where I couldn't have that hard conversation if and when the time occurs. So I guess you've got to be at that point where you have to say to yourself, if I had to have this difficult conversation, can I have that with this person? And if you can't have that conversation, you may have a look at how friendly or how close you are to them, because there's I had a guy here who worked for us, and we're really good friends from primary school all the way through. And he said to me, when I asked him to come work for me, he said to me, "Oh, we're really good friends. Do you think that's a good idea?" And but if I needed to, I would have been able to have that conversation with him.
Mm-hmm.
So but that's the defining point. Can you have that conversation? And if you say you can't, then you're too close. But if you say you can be friends, like we go out to dinner together, our wives are friendly. But if I needed to have that conversation, I could have that without any question.
Okay.
So
That makes perfect sense. That clears it up, and I hope that helps, Stephen. In a similar vein, you mentioned being too friendly with staff, but can you also be too friendly with clients? And I think you pretty much boxed this off with what you just said, Ed. A lot of people build businesses within friendship networks. So I think that answer that you've just provided clarifies that and clears that up. Anything else to add on that one? Or are you happy enough with that being covered off?
Yeah, I am, but Jamie might want to contribute here because you're in this position.
Yeah, just a quick couple of points is, Brenton, and for everyone is, there's a lot of family businesses in Australia and around the world,
Mm-hmm.
and if those family businesses to scale and grow, those family businesses have to develop, communication policies, KPIs, and respectful lines of communication, and they have to have the hard conversations, whether it's family or otherwise. So I support in what says you must be able to have the hard conversations, but at the same time, in conjunction with that, you must have, KPIs or goals around that person's performance to run the business properly. And one thing that we run at Sky is like a quarterly catch up. I have a 15-minute quarterly catch up with the senior client managers, and each of those is just in Tiny Pulse, and it's just a system. It has 12 questions. How are you going in these different areas? And
Mm-hmm.
it's a totally different conversation, Brenton, about day-to-day work versus are we hitting the targets?
Right.
So it forces you inadvertently to have the more difficult conversations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So
Let the system drive it.
Systematize the conversations, because if you don't like having those conversations, you can almost bet your bottom dollar you're not going to book it in your calendar to do it.
Absolutely. Easy not to, that's for sure. And in a similar vein to that, I guess, Brett's asked if someone does make a mistake, and as you suggest, you don't blame them, but rather focus on fixing that mistake, then how do you deal with that person thereafter? That is to say, do you leave it as is, problem fixed, move on, or do you have a one-on-one meeting to discuss what happened with that person?
Oh, obviously, you know, you don't reprimand people in front of others.
Hmm.
But obviously, you've got to make it known that the problem occurred, otherwise it will occur again. And but you don't do that in front of others. And then you might have a, you know, a one-on-one, but it all comes back to the language that you use, because you know, if you said you've made a mistake, well, that's cutting to some. You could say that to me, it wouldn't matter to me, but it could matter to somebody else. So you've got to be conscious. On the other side,
Mm-hmm.
and we've got to focus on being a leader. A leader is about getting the best productivity out of that person. And if you say something to upset them and they couldn't produce anymore, and they had to go home because they were so upset, then you as a leader whose job is to get the best productivity out of someone has failed, because you've either shouted at them or you've upset them, or like, and as I said, everybody's different. You know, some people like me, you could shout at me, it wouldn't make any difference to me. I wouldn't get upset. I just focus on, you know, the mistake. And but some other people are a lot more sensitive. So you've got to address your style according to the people that you're managing.
Okay, makes perfect sense. And I think